All right, some breaking news to get to here on this Thursday edition of Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr., and after the retirement of DeVante Parker on Monday night, you had a feeling that the Eagles were going to make a move at the wide receiver position, and they are doing just that, adding depth to the wide receiver spot in signing wide receiver John Ross, a former top 10 pick, to a one-year contract. Before we dissect that, this is why you subscribe to the channel. The news happens, and already we're breaking it down just minutes after that tweet was sent out by the Philadelphia Eagles, and we are 136 people away from 75,000 subscribers. So if you want informative, entertaining, insightful, breaking news coverage of the Eagles every single day year-round, lock us in, hit that sub button, and I'm challenging the Bird Gang. Can we get to that milestone with this show alone? So the Birds tweeting this out just a little while ago, just after noon Eastern time on this Thursday, May 23rd, 2024, that the Eagles are signing wide receiver John Ross to a one-year deal. And I always laugh at tweets like this from Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network when he says, it's an intriguing signing. What that tells me is that the agent reached out to Ian Rappaport and he said, can you say some good words about my client? Because no doubt, is the speed of John Ross very intriguing? For sure. Prior to Xavier Worthy setting the record for the fastest 40-yard dash in the history of the NFL Scouting Combine back in March when we were there, giving you coverage on Eagles Now, it was John Ross who had previously set the record, but he's literally never, ever been able to stay healthy. He's been a massive bust as a former top 10 pick by the Bengals out of Washington, and even the production when he's been healthy has not been there. So the Eagles, interestingly enough, did give him a tryout recently, and they wanted to see what the recently retired player could do. He had retired because of all of the injuries that he's had to endure throughout his NFL career. He must have impressed Philadelphia. They also realized, we're a little bit light as far as the depth goes at the wide receiver position because we thought DeVante Parker was going to be in our plans. So he's going to give this team a vertical threat. We'll see if he even is able to crack the roster, but clearly Philadelphia was intrigued by what they saw, and any time a player is a burner and a speedster who could take the top off of the defense like John Ross, his speed is going to be able to pop on the practice field. But one, can he stay healthy? And two, can that translate to the game field? If anything, Eagles are just bulking up the depth at that wide receiver spot because this week it took a little bit of a hit. DeVante Parker retires. Eagles needed some wide receiver depth. I still would not rule out Philadelphia going elsewhere in free agency, maybe making a trade to see how the wide receiver rooms for other organizations across the National Football League kind of work out as we approach the regular season in training camp, see which players are unhappy with their roles, see which teams are unhappy with specific wide receivers. Maybe they don't have roles in vision for some of those wideouts, and at that point, Howie Roseman can pounce by way of the trade market. More information on Ross. He's still only 28 years old, so when he did retire, it came as a little bit of a surprise just because of his age, but then you think about all the injuries that he suffered. That's why he decided to walk away from the game of football. It felt as though anytime he was going to find his footing, anytime he was going to be able to produce, there was some type of setback. 9th overall selection out of Washington back in 2017. That 40-yard dash, it was a 4.22 before Xavier Worthy clocked that 4.21 coming out of Texas and Indianapolis in March. Constantly been injured with the Bengals from 2017 to 2020, with the New York Giants in 2021, so he has not played the last 2 years at the NFL level. And this is why. He gets picked 9th overall, and the Bengals have big plans envisioned for him. He plays 3 games as a rookie, only 1 start. Year 2, you're like, okay. Year 1, a mirage with the injuries. 13 games, 10 starts, but the production not there consistently, and he wasn't that explosive threat that the Bengals thought he was going to be when they took him inside the top 10. It was one of those classic recency bias type of draft selections for Cincinnati where Ross, a lot of scouts liked him coming out of Washington, but a top 10 pick. The 40-yard dash made that value for him skyrocket going into the draft. 2019, only 8 games and 8 starts. 2020, 3 games, 1 start. And then he played with the Giants, latched on for 10 games and 1 start. So in his career so far, since being selected in 2017, he has only been able to play a grand total of 37 games. And look, it's unfortunate that he hasn't been able to stay on the field. It's unfortunate that he's been brittle and injured a lot. But when you are a top 10 pick and you've barely played and you've been on the injury list time and time again, you are categorized as a bust. I'm sorry, 143 targets throughout his career, 62 catches. So he's caught less than 50% of his targets, 957 yards, 11 touchdowns. Yards per catch, that's the plus at 15.4 because he is that vertical element. Eagles now have 2 burners. Paris Campbell, 4.3 40-yard dash guy, coming out of Ohio State, a former second-round pick, and now John Ross, a 9th overall pick, and a 4.22 40-yard dash guy. That sounds great in theory, but both of those players have been busts with where they were drafted because of injuries holding them back. And I would still say that wide receiver depth is still and remains an issue for the Philadelphia Eagles. You have one of the best top 2 wide receiver cores in the NFL with A.J. Brown and DeVonte Smith. But who's going to be this wide receiver 3? Who's going to be the wide receiver 4? And are you going to count on Ainias Smith, who's a rookie, and Johnny Wilson, who's a raw rookie, in addition to Paris Campbell, in addition to John Ross, maybe a Joseph Nagata can kind of turn heads once again like he did in training camp last year, but it's just not ideal, the situation that the Eagles are in at that wide receiver position after their top 2. Now for Ross, could this be the year that he stays healthy? You could, of course, pose that question, but how many times did the Cincinnati Bengals say that? How many times did the New York Giants say that when they looked at him and said, we can get him right, we can get him healthy? You get him into our strength and conditioning program, and we can get him on the right track. It didn't work out for Cincinnati. It didn't work out for the New York Giants. And at some point, you kind of are who you are. And it's unfortunate for Ross because at times you've seen the vertical threat and vertical nature to his game reap dividends for the Bengals offense, the Giants offense, when he does make a splash play. But those big explosive plays are few and far between. Now, if he can stay healthy and he does produce, this is the type of Philadelphia underdog written off story that the fans can get behind. Because Philadelphia, an underdog city, as all of us know. Take a gander at the Eagles wide receiver depth chart. Not more to say about A.J. Brown and DeVonte Smith. Incredible. And what they've both done together the last 2 years, they've literally been the most successful wide receiver duo in the history of the Eagles organization. If they do get hurt, though, that's when you start to get concerned. You have other weapons on this offense that can help make up for it. Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, good offensive line. You're on a little bit more RPO with Jalen Hurts, and you can get by. But if one or two of them gets injured, you're looking at Paris Campbell, John Ross, Johnny Wilson, Ainias Smith, Joseph Nagata, Britton Covey as your top wide receivers. I mean, A.J. Brown was injured in the wild card round against Tampa Bay, and Julio Jones was relegated up or moved up to wide receiver number 2 with DeVonte Smith as the wide receiver 1, and we saw how difficult it was for the Eagles to get the pass game going. With that, let's ask you this. Will John Ross make the Eagles 2024 53-man roster? It's going to be our pinned comment and today's poll question. M for make, C for cut. As you venture down there, if you want to support the show, support Cooper DeJean, and support the Birds, we put a creative twist on these Cooper DeJean shirts. The word John, it just is part of the fabric and the history of Philadelphia. The real ones know. Chatsports.com/Dijon, available in Kelly Green as well as black. We'll put that link down below in the show notes as well as in the comment section of this video. So as we round out today's Philadelphia Eagles now, and I appreciate everybody for watching. If you're still tuned in, type read one. Our channel growth has been incredible with this channel being on my watch the last couple of years, going into year 3 of covering this football team. This past week, 2 weeks, the videos have been popping, so thank you so much for supporting the program here. The story here for John Ross. He doesn't work out as a huge bust so far. Then he retires. Then he makes his return. He tries out for the Eagles. He signs a deal. That is something worth celebrating. And if he does make this team, that's an incredible story. I'm hoping that John Ross is going to be able to stay healthy, but his past is his past. His resume is his resume, and I'm not going to get the expectations up for a player who hasn't consistently been able to stay on the field. It's been very frustrating for him, and it's unfortunate, no doubt. Make sure you give me a follow on X, give me a follow on Instagram. You can find me over there at Chase_Senior. And don't forget to subscribe to the show. As always, go Birds!